Hello, Death, Sex and Money listener. I know that you love a human drama that speaks to something big. So if I could recommend one new podcast, it's American Fiasco, and not just because it's hosted by me, Roger Bennett. It's about a soccer team that embraced most of the 7 deadly sins and ended up hurting the sport they loved. Listen to American Fiasco today from WNYC Studios.
When I asked for help, my mom dropped everything. And so when my mom had said that they were having trouble and they needed help, I figured it would be better for us to just be here and make a life here.
This is Death, Sex, and Money.
You're a virgin who can't drive.
The show from WNYC about the things we think about a lot.
You don't care they're counting on your tips to live?
And need to talk about more.
If you don't give me one good reason to keep living, I'm gonna do this.
I'm Anna Sale. Just a year ago, the Minnesota-based band Communist Daughter was on the road. They were promoting their second full-length album, stopping at clubs, radio stations, and festivals across the country.
Till I fall, till I fall, till I fall.
But driving from gig to gig, their lead singer, Johnny Solomon, was worried. A few months earlier, he'd gone to visit his mom and her husband outside San Diego. His wife, Molly, came too. She also sings in the band.
It became more and more evident that they really did need somebody close by.
She said, like half crying, that they needed help.
Did your mom specifically say, what do you think about spending more time out here, being here full time for a period?
It didn't come off that nicely.
Yeah, she was like, it's time.
Do you guys want some coffee? Do you want some donuts?
We met Johnny and Molly not on the road, but at the 2-bedroom bungalow in California that they now share with Johnny's mom, Nancy, and her husband, Hugh. Hugh has dementia, and Nancy has a degenerative nerve disease that's similar to multiple sclerosis. Johnny and Molly have become their live-in caregivers.
Like, we're living in a guest room out of suitcases still.
So your clothes aren't in drawers?
No, we've created...
we've done what we could out of,
We've taken, at my dresser right now is, I took out all of Nancy's files in her...
So a file
Has,
cabinet.
it's like a file cabinet made out of, wicker, though. And so, yeah, that's my...
It doesn't feel like
dresser.
We tour so much, or we did tour so much that, we're used to living out of small spaces and suitcases.
Johnny sent us an email shortly after they moved to California last summer. He wrote, "It put our career, our music, my whole existence into a no man's land. My wife and I made our money touring, but now we can't really tour. My band and manager are all trying to figure out how the music goes on, or if it does." And I recognized this CD.
Yeah.
Mom has to have CDs.
We sat in their open living room, where Johnny's mom, Nancy, has a big recliner that rotates around so she can keep watch on what's going on throughout the house. Molly and Johnny and I squeezed in around her.
I feel like we're having a huddle right here, because we're all gathered around, leaned. Right? Yeah.
Now we should all put our arms around.
Nancy told me her illness makes it hard to move around much.
It takes all my energy, so I can't do as much. So it's been a very difficult, because I was a very active person.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, she was the alpha female, she's still the boss. She just now sits in her throne the whole time.
I kind of manipulate them.
That's something that Molly had to get used to. Mom has this way of bossing you around, but in a way that you can tell that she cares, but it'll be move that box, sit right there, move that chair over here, and it's like she cares, but it comes out as Mom is in charge.
Having 4 kids did it.
Yeah.
Having 4 kids did it, Nancy said. Nancy is tall and broad-shouldered like her son. She's a psychiatrist, one of the only women in her medical school class. She still works part-time at a local mental health clinic, where she used to work full-time before her symptoms got worse. She was getting ready for a shift when I visited, but generally her schedule is less busy these days.
Like Fridays, she has her hair appointment, and but then, you know, like we come back and she's mostly here in this chair. So we're kind of running around and when she needs something, fetching something.
We keep one person in the house. You know, because I've fallen before. If I fall, I can't get up.
Johnny told me that of all his siblings, he was in the best position to come out to help. But he was not always someone that Nancy could rely on.
I think Mom has seen a huge change in me as a person in the last few years.
There's been a change, a very comfortable change.
Throughout his 20s and early 30s, as Johnny's music career was taking off and he was running a promising new restaurant near Minneapolis, he struggled with substance abuse and undiagnosed mental illness. It tested his relationships with everyone in his life, including his mom.
She was always still, like, loved me no matter what I did. And because I was a meth addict. I was alcohol and meth. And, you know, people they see it from the outside, but it's impossible to explain it from the inside of what it does to your soul, what it does to every part of you. Where, I mean, I could lie all the time. I could do just this dark part of me was just all of me. And I did really terrible things to the people I loved.
And one time when he was here,
I had a moment.
He was on, and you had a moment, and he was yelling at me and disrespectful.
Yeah, I was cussing at everybody, and yeah, Molly was here for that too.
And when you say you were using meth, like, is it something you would buy? Were you ever making it?
I always bought it. There was a period for about 2 years I was using it every day. And I would buy it and smoke it or eat it or snort it. But then, I was spending, I don't know, $600-700 a week maybe on it.
Did you have that money?
I found that money. I mean, at the time I had a restaurant, which probably would have done really well because it was good food.
You got top 10 best
new restaurants in Midwest Living magazine.
Magazine.
So when you say you found that money, was it money that should have gone to other things or money that you got from other people?
Money that I should have gone for other things. It was like in the budget of the restaurant to make sure that I had, you know, about $600 a week that I would take out in cash. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's very unpleasant to think about.
This was in 2010 when the band was promoting their first record and starting to have a lot of success. Johnny was falling apart. That became clear one night when the band was playing a big show in Minneapolis.
I got on stage and I was a disaster. It was rough.
It was embarrassing.
It was embarrassing.
It was.
And I was high and drunk, and I mean, I was heavy.
We started
sores
singing
on my
the
face.
song.
And, yeah. And to the point where, like, you know, and I think most people knew there was something wrong with me. And I had called my mom, and I was like, I can't wait any longer. You know, I'm at the bottom, and if it gets any lower, it's going to get way worse.
Why was it your mom that you called?
I don't know. Maybe because that's the last person that would take my call. And I'd asked her for help so many times, and she never said no. Even though so many people in my life had started saying no. And I just knew that, and I knew when I called her, I knew what I was asking for. And I knew that she was the one who was, you know, she would know when I was serious. And so she knew that I was asking for help for real.
If you didn't get help, it was over.
Yeah. I mean,
That was in his voice.
yeah, I had nothing left, and I suddenly couldn't write songs anymore. And that's when I realized, like, oh, like God's going to take everything away from me unless I do something. So that's when I called my mom.
As a physician, we always sent our physicians when they got in trouble to Hazleton. It was just something we did. And we thought they did a good job. So I insisted that he had to go to Hazleton. And he did.
Did you help him pay for that? Did you pay for the treatment?
Yes. It's death, sex, and money, Mom. So we got to talk about all of them.
Yes. It took most of my retirement. It was not all of it, but it took me.
It was an investment.
Yes, it was a wonderful investment.
Johnny went to rehab at a Hazleton Betty Ford treatment center in Minnesota for 45 days. Coming up, I talk with Johnny and Molly about how his sobriety changed the dynamics of their band and made him surprisingly suited for caregiving.
People who know me know that I love things that only old people should love. I'm a big fan of The Golden Girls and Murder, She Wrote and going to bed early.
We keep hearing from you about our series about class called Opportunity Cost and all the feelings those episodes are bringing up for you. We've been thinking about ways to keep that conversation going, and last week, Frederick McKendra, an emerging writer fellow at BuzzFeed, asked us this.
Come across any good reading lists spotlighting books on class in America? Should one exist, maybe?
We passed that idea on to you over Twitter and in our newsletter, and you all have a lot of ideas. Several of you have recommended the novel An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. I recommended a collection of essays and stories called Tales of Two Americas. Frederick suggested Barbara Ehrenreich's book Fear of Falling, and a listener named Elizabeth added the book Sleeping Giant, How the New Working Class Will Transform America. To add a book to our recommended reading on class, send us an email at deathsexmoney@wnyc.org. We'll share this reading list on class in next week's newsletter. So if you're not signed up already, go to deathsexmoney.org/newsletter to subscribe. On the next episode, veteran turned comedian Tom Tran talks about being shot 4 days into his deployment in Iraq and catching the whole thing on camera.
I said, I'm going to videotape this for my dad to show him, what Iraq looks like. So the video camera just rolled. And on the tape, you hear my interpreter say, this is a bad place. And no sooner than he said that, bullets start flying. And on the tape, you hear crack, 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 crack.
Death, Sex, and Money is supported by Showtime and the acclaimed series The Affair. This summer, the journey continues in this intimate relationship drama. A fresh start should mean a new beginning, but it isn't that easy when the past forces everyone to crash back together. Starring Dominic West, Ruth Wilson, Maura Tierney, and Joshua Jackson, don't miss a new episode of The Affair every Sunday on Showtime. To get a free month, go to Showtime.com and enter code MONEY. Offer is for first-time subscribers only and expires July 15th. Death, Sex, and Money is supported by the podcast Terrible, Thanks for Asking. Host Nora McInerney talks to regular people about how life really is, the hard human stuff. Nora brings heart and humor to stories about people going through terrible things like addiction, loss, and loneliness. Terrible, Thanks for Asking recently won a Webby, and the New York Times calls it a gift to listen. Subscribe to Terrible, Thanks for Asking on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcasting app.
Summer 2016, a 911 call.
There's this guy in the middle of the road, and he has what appeared to be a gun.
I'm Audrey Quinn. On the new podcast After Effect from WNYC Studios, we uncover the story behind the police shooting of a behavioral health worker and the autistic man he tried to protect. Listen and subscribe to After Effect wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Death, Sex, and Money from WNYC. I'm Anna Sale. While Johnny Solomon was in rehab 7 years ago, his band Communist Daughter got their first major nationwide exposure. Grey's Anatomy used some of their music in an episode, including this song, Soundtrack to the End.
We put on a pretty face, and we never saved our money. And then we got stuck in place, and I lost my milk and honey.
So did you actually saw like Grey's Anatomy and heard your song playing
in treatment?
In treatment.
Yeah.
Were you in like a group room?
That's exactly what.
Yeah, you have to like ask to use the TV or to have.
Yeah,
because
I had to. Like, we have to watch Grey's Anatomy, and everyone gets to vote on what they're going to watch, and it was neat too because when you're in treatment, you're with all these different people from all different walks of life, and there's a little bit of like, it's like, I'm a musician. Oh, who are you? And it's like, you probably never heard of me, but now you've heard of me. Look, I'm on Grey's Anatomy.
And some of the best of us are already home, still singing softly through the stereo.
While he was in rehab, Johnny was also diagnosed as bipolar. His mom, Nancy, the psychiatrist, knew that was in their family history, but she didn't think Johnny was affected.
I didn't think it was in my genes, or didn't think about it. So, this is sad, but if they're on medication, they're just as normal as everybody else.
Do you find yourself like doing clinical check-ins of Johnny? Like, do you sort of like...
Yes, she does.
I try not to. I mean, I think it always, because of my training, I can't say I don't.
She asked me a lot about how much I sleep.
That's probably true. I have to say.
Totally fine.
Yeah, I have, all through my training, when I'm meeting with couples and things like that, a lot of times I have told them, okay, 18, your children are their own. They're no longer yours, and you have to let them go. And you do kind of cry about it because you've spent all this time. But they have to have that choice. So I was so fortunate when one decided that I was a close part of his life.
It was time for Nancy to leave to see patients at the clinic. Johnny helped her out the door.
Are you going to your
my
room?
cane.
I've got your cane.
Okay. Yeah.
Johnny is 39 now. Molly, his wife, is 32. It's not clear how long they'll have to live out here in Southern California. And that's caused a lot of uncertainty at a time when they really want to be planning for the future.
I mean, it could be like a year of our life. It could be 10 years of our life.
What was the conversation like between you two when it was first brought up about the possibility of moving out here full time?
Honestly, I was pretty hesitant to get on the bandwagon there. Because all my, my whole family lives in Minnesota, and we're pretty close, and all my friends, and also it was coming up on the time where we were starting to talk about kids, and my whole thing was like, I can't be away from my mom when that was something that was like really important to me. I don't know. Also, my parents they're a lot younger than John's, so I just wasn't really thinking about that yet.
Johnny, though, has been looking for a change for a while. Since getting sober, life as a touring musician has become harder.
I get really angry. I get really short. I feel really lonely, even though like I'm surrounded by people the whole time. It's really hard to describe, and sometimes the thing that's tough is that like I'm sober and I'm bipolar, and I have to be surrounded by drunk, fun-loving party, rolling through every town, and it's like the last thing I want to do, and the last thing that's good for me.
Well, it sounds like such a contrast to your routine now.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love routine. I love it because when things get out of control, then I start to really lose control. And we had always, when we were on tour, we'd always stop and stay in San Diego, and it felt like this magical place where for 2 weeks out of our very hectic and sometimes very stressful life, we got to spend 2 weeks in San Diego having, like eating oranges off the tree. It was like a
vacation, yeah.
And so, like, to me, it was always like, wouldn't this be great if we just moved to San Diego for a little bit? It would be this huge life shift where we'd have to decide what we were doing with our life.
It strikes me that, like, figuring out different ways to make money at, sort of an earlier, like having a kind of like in your 30s, is this music thing going to work out? Do I need to make money another way? You all have an extreme version of that. But I guess I imagine you have peers who have gone through similar sort of like, is this going to happen or is this not? And do we need to come up with a different plan?
Yeah. And, I think that, our idea of success when you're in your 20s, you just think things will figure themselves out. If I do what I love, things will figure themselves out. And now in my 30s, my late 30s, it's like, oh, well, yeah, everyone knew you can't make money at music. Like, everyone knows that, And so I'm at this age now where it's like, if I don't figure something else out, what else am I going to do? Like, am I going to be the guy who learned to play, Irish folk tunes so I could, do it Wednesdays at the local Irish pub or something, like, but I don't know. So, like, I luckily I've started to, like, what I thought would feel like kind of soul sucking by looking somewhere else starts to feel actually kind of freeing.
Molly and Johnny are living rent-free now as they figure out what's next. Johnny's started taking online grad school classes to become a substance abuse counselor. Molly told me she was applying for pharmacy tech jobs. Their band, Communist Daughter, is still officially together, but they told me it feels like it's on hiatus. Most of their time is spent taking care of Johnny's mom and her husband, and they know that will only escalate, especially as Nancy's illness progresses.
It is the thing with my mom where it's funny how, like, 90% of the time, like, when I wake up in the morning and I look at my day, it looks like I don't have anything to do. But as soon as you step out of that door, it could be like, oh, mom has to go to a doctor now, or, like, suddenly something happened with the bank and I've got to run there. And so even though you have all this, like, you think you're going to have free time, you kind of have to be, your schedule has to be kind of open.
Is she able to move in and out of the bathroom on her own?
It's hard. It's really hard. It like wears her out so much. So it is probably going to get to that point pretty soon, and we're not sure.
We've talked about maybe having somebody come in, once a week or, for bathing.
But I do, sometimes I have to help her put on articles of clothing or, put on, well, pretty much every, her jewelry. I have to put that on. She can't reach up high and her hands shake. So.
And then there's, just the things of like, Mom, you can't walk around. You can't, you're going to fall over. You're going to knock things over. So you end up like having these conversations where it's like, you can't, no, like, I'm going to pour your soy sauce. And she's like, a very smart, very,
right.
And she was the boss for so long. And now I'm telling her she can't pour her own soy sauce because.
It is funny how those roles get reversed, and it's been a learning experience.
I think being out here has been interesting because it forces, Molly's had to, be vocal about certain things, especially with my mom's way of dealing with things.
Yeah, it actually has been good because it's like making me a stronger person.
Give me an example.
Making me more.
Can you think of something?
I'm a very I'll go out of my way to do something nice kind of a person, which I don't know. That sounds so weird saying that out loud, but there have been times when, I don't finish my breakfast or it gets cold because I have to, help her do something that actually isn't very important and it can totally wait. Like I've learned to be like, actually, I'm eating my breakfast right now. So is it okay if I throw away the newspaper for you later?
She's so bossy about the way she says things.
Would you mind setting that on the counter next to you, or
Yeah.
I love that, thinking about that being like, I get to say, can I please finish my breakfast? Like talking yourself into that.
Yeah. She's gotten a lot better though.
Yeah.
Because you've pointed out those things to her so often.
It's weird now because it's becoming more of like, I feel more like a parent where I catch myself being, I don't know. Well, I know what kind of parent maybe I'll be. I'll be the, like...
Really? It's like a little glimpse into that?
Yeah, and it's the things, it's like not the good things. It's the things that like, oh, this is going to really fluster me.
Do you feel like you found a community at all here, Molly? Yet?
No, I haven't. But I kind of, I'm kind of enjoying it in a way, like just having a lot of free time, or at least, like John says, you expect to have free time. It's funny how that changes throughout the day, but I don't know. It's just such a difference out here. You know, you don't have a community and you don't have friends and you don't have.
We have some friends that we met through being on tour, that like some musicians and some people that came to some shows.
But we haven't hung out with them still.
Yeah, but they're in once. You know, we're up here like in this kind of retirement little area, and you know, so it's like a 40-minute drive to go hang out with them, and we would, but it's also I got to be back here every night to make dinner, and you know, you can't miss your shows. We watch a lot of TV right now.
What have been your strategies to have privacy as a couple?
Well, we have decided that once a month, we'll have like a date night where we...
Once a month.
And we'll go away to like a hotel or something.
And then every once in a while, they'll go out to eat dinner. Yeah, I think even if they don't want to, they'll go out, you know, once every couple weeks. Yeah. Which is still then like, we're looking at once every 2 weeks. But, you know, we talked about like, this is a time in our life where we want to talk about starting a family. And so it becomes like, how are we going to do that here? You know, you don't want to be changing diapers on both sides of things. It's this weird, morbid conversation that you have to have where you have to be like, well, will they die before we, you know, get pregnant? So then we could go back to Minnesota. And that's like such a weird thing to like, to be like, well, we don't hope that.
No,
we don't,
not at all.
But it's like, could we make it work if, you know, if Molly gets pregnant out here? Would she resent me? And, you know, like, I don't know. It was just a lot of conversations where when it came down to it, it was just like, this is what felt like we had to do, because if we didn't do it, what's the other option?
Man, I hate this town, so I'm looking for the only way out. And the life I wanted years ago is maybe not the life I should have found.
That's Johnny and Molly Solomon and the Communist Daughter song, Speed of Sound. Since I visited, Nancy's health has continued to decline. She's now not able to work at all. Johnny's doing an internship at the mental health clinic where his mom used to work, and Molly has a job working at a local pharmacy. They've decided to put off trying to get pregnant for at least a year. Death, Sex, and Money is a listener-supported production of WNYC Studios in New York. I'm based at the Center for Investigative Reporting in Emeryville, California. Our team includes Katie Bishop, Annabelle Bacon, Emily Botine, and Andrew Dunn. Our interns are Catherine Hsu and Angeli Marcato. Thanks to Will Huntsberry for his help on this episode. The Reverend John Delore and Steve Lewis wrote our theme music. I'm on Twitter at Anna Sale, and you can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Death, Sex, Money. Johnny and Molly did tell me that they're doing some writing for a third Communist Daughter album. But when it comes out, doing any publicity for it might be a challenge.
We gave an interview where they wanted to do it a Skype interview, and we set it up outside because it was so beautiful, but Hugh kept walking
back and forth
behind us,
like
picking up dog poop.
Yeah, he's right behind us.
I'm Anna Sale, and this is Death, Sex, and Money from WNYC.
Where I catch myself being, I don't know. Well, I know what kind of parent maybe I'll be. I'll be the, like...
Really? It's like a little glimpse into that?
Yeah, and it's the things, it's like not the good things. It's the things that like, oh, this is going to really fluster me.
Do you feel like you found a community at all here, Molly? Yet?
No, I haven't. But I kind of, I'm kind of enjoying it in a way, like just having a lot of free time, or at least, yeah, like John says, you expect to have free time. It's funny how that changes throughout the day, but I don't know. It's just such a difference out here. You know, you don't have a community and you don't have friends and you don't have.
We have some friends that we met through being on tour, that like some musicians and some people that came to some shows.
But we haven't hung out with them still.
Yeah, but they're in once. You know, we're up here like in this kind of retirement little area, and you know, so it's like a 40-minute drive to go hang out with them, and we would, but it's also I got to be back here every night to make dinner, and you know, you can't miss your shows. We watch a lot of TV right now.
What have been your strategies to have privacy as a couple?
Oh.
Well, we have decided that once a month, we'll have like a date night where we...
Once a month.
And we'll go away to like a hotel or something.
And then every once in a while, they'll go out to eat dinner. Yeah, I think even if they don't want to, they'll go out, you know, once every couple weeks.
Yeah.
Which is still then like, we're looking at once every 2 weeks. But, you know, we talked about like, this is a time in our life where we want to talk about starting a family. And so it becomes like, how are we going to do that here? You know, you don't want to be changing diapers on both sides of things. It's this weird, morbid conversation that you have to have where you have to be like, well, will they die before we, you know, get pregnant? So then we could go back to Minnesota. And that's like such a weird thing to like, to be like, well, we don't hope that.
No,
we don't,
not at all.
But it's like, could we make it work if, you know, if Molly gets pregnant out here, would she resent me? And, you know, like, I don't know. It was just a lot of conversations where when it came down to it, it was just like, this is what felt like we had to do, because if we didn't do it, what's the other option?
Man, I hate this town, so I'm looking for the only way out. And the life I wanted years ago is maybe not the life I should have found.
That's Johnny and Molly Solomon and the Communist Daughter song, Speed of Sound. Since I visited, Nancy's health has continued to decline. She's now not able to work at all. Johnny's doing an internship at the mental health clinic where his mom used to work, and Molly has a job working at a local pharmacy. They've decided to put off trying to get pregnant for at least a year. Death, Sex, and Money is a listener-supported production of WNYC Studios in New York. I'm based at the Center for Investigative Reporting in Emeryville, California. Our team includes Katie Bishop, Annabelle Bacon, Emily Botine, and Andrew Dunn. Our interns are Catherine Shue and Angeli Marcado. Thanks to Will Huntsberry for his help on this episode. The Reverend John DeLore and Steve Lewis wrote our theme music. I'm on Twitter at Anna Sale, and you can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Death, Sex, Money. Johnny and Molly did tell me that they're doing some writing for a third Communist Daughter album. But when it comes out, doing any publicity for it might be a challenge.
We gave an interview where they wanted to do it a Skype interview, and we set it up outside because it was so beautiful, but Hugh kept walking
back and
forth behind us,
like
picking up dog poop.
Yeah, right behind us.
I'm Anna Sale, and this is Death, Sex, and Money from WNYC. John DeLore and Steve Lewis wrote our theme music. I'm on Twitter at Anna Sale, and you can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Death, Sex, Money. Johnny and Molly did tell me that they're doing some writing for a third Communist Daughter album. But when it comes out, doing any publicity for it might be a challenge.
We gave an interview where they wanted to do it a Skype interview, and we set it up outside because it was so beautiful, but Hugh kept walking
back and forth
behind us,
like
picking up dog poop.
Yeah, right behind us.
I'm Anna Sale, and this is Death, Sex, and Money from WNYC. I'm Anna Sale, and this is Death, Sex, and Money from WNYC.